Welcome back to the live broadcast from the studios of the Government Information Service. We are covering St. Lucia's COVID-19 response from the command center here at the studio. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jessie Leonce. I just want to give you a timeline of things just to set the pace for this upcoming interview. The first case in St. Lucia was diagnosed on 13th March. The first case of COVID-19 here in St. Lucia on 13th March, and by 25th March, within a fortnight, the country registered a total of 13 cases. Patient 9, a 74-year-old female who had no travel history or known contact with an individual with travel history was the first confirmed case that local transmission of COVID-19 was established. Unless you have not grasped the severity of this situation, we want you to take in those words that local transmission has been established in this country. COVID-19 is in the air. And despite the shutdown, accommodation is being made for persons who need emergency supplies, etc. We want to make a special appeal. If you have no need to head out, please do not. I want to emphasize that my words are not to incite fear. We need to be realistic about the dire circumstances that we are in. Lives are in the balance. St. Lucia is at risk. That is as plain as I can put it. We can get into semantics and debates over the shutdown, but ultimately we are in a state of emergency, and I strongly encourage that you stay in if you can help it. The shutdown is in an effort to curb the transmission of the deadly COVID-19. Please protect your families. Stay home. If not, I wish you a safe journey out and back home as you collect much needed supplies for your household. I just saw an article. The Prime Minister was encouraging persons to wear medical face masks. And so if you do own one, please use it if you have to go out. I just want to provide you with an essential services update. It is now 12:33, so the essential services that I would imagine would be most popular: mini marts, community small shops being open. From 12 noon, they would be ordered to close, but they were open from 6 a.m. to 12 noon to accommodate persons who were caught off guard by this announcement by the Prime Minister. Wholesalers, delivery activity, minimal operations, operating from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. to accommodate these small shops and community shops in terms of their operations for today and for Monday, the 6th of April, when they will reopen from 6 a.m. to 12 noon. Bakers are also allowed to operate. They were allowed to operate today from 3 to 1 p.m. So it's just under 30 minutes time before they have to close their operations. So you do have the opportunity to head out, get supplies. There was much ado about, persons not being able to head out, but we hope you were able to get some of the supplies that you needed. And at this time, as promised, we told you that we were going to have an interview with the Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation, the Honorable Minister Guy Joseph. We have him in studio right now. Good day, Mr. Joseph.
Good day to you and good day to all St. Lucians.
Thank you very much for being here with us. Just to open, I want you to walk us through the very, tight position that Cabinet was in to making this decision to shut down the country. There have been many opinions voiced about the policy decision and how things have been rolling out so far. Can you take us through the spirit with which it was implemented?
Well, first of all, let me say a pleasant good afternoon to all St. Lucians. I expect more than 90% of the St. Lucian population to be at home at this point in time. So I'm hoping that they're paying attention to what is happening and the directives that have been given. Managing COVID-19 has been a challenge of a lifetime. And we have seen our first world countries that we look up to struggling, not being able to get sometimes the basics right in being able to deal with this situation of COVID-19. So as a small island state, we are totally in charge of our own affairs. It means that whatever decisions we would have to make, the cabinet of ministers, the agency with the Ministry of Health, NIMAC, NIMO, all of the agencies that have been involved in the process are the ones guiding and evaluating the situation to help cabinet in the decision-making process. So it's not a situation where the executive of government sits and says, look at, this is what it is, this is what we are doing. It does not operate like that. We have had a high level of consultation, and there is no easy decision. So they say in hindsight, vision is 2020. So everybody can look back at a decision that is already made and evaluate how it could have been done better. But if they were placed in the position to have made the decision with the information that was available at the time, then it would have been a different scenario. So in looking at the situation, I think that under the leadership of Prime Minister Alan Chasney, that the best decision was made to shut down the country with immediate effect. And if anybody doubted that, the few hours of opening today would have sealed that decision. And I can tell you, before I came here, from early this morning, I was getting the videos, the calls, the messages. Some people were accusing or instigating that the government had crumbled under some pressure and had given that reprieve because we were under pressure. We were not under pressure to make that decision. That was always part of the plan when the immediate shutdown happened.
So the government is not acquiescing?
No, it is not an afterthought of, okay, people were not prepared and now we need to give them a window of reprieve. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know that the Prime Minister had been in consultation with a number of colleague Prime Ministers, some of which we were trying to learn from the initiatives undertaken by some of these other countries and what was best practice, what had brought out the best results. And what we felt was, in the case of Grenada as an example, what had happened in Grenada is that the small shops in the communities were allowed to open for a period of time. It meant that people did not have to take the bus because the public transport system is not operational. Then some of the basic things that may be required, people would have had the opportunity to get some of these basic supplies that they needed. It's unfortunate that the ill discipline in our society, I don't know if people think that if they stand closer together, that they would get to the door faster. I mean, it still baffles me that people would try to buy 2 pounds of rice to eat today, that if they don't eat, they will not die, or they will not suffer that much, as opposed to risking themselves getting COVID-19, the risk of losing their life, the risk of the entire family being contaminated. I mean, I want persons to understand Cabinet's perspective. The government was advised by the CMO, the Ministry of Health, and all those who are involved in running the model to say that if we do not control this, the level at which it will multiply will be way beyond where we are. What we have, 9 ventilators? We already have people in ICU on some of these ventilators. The mighty USA cannot get ventilators. I know we have some on order. I'm hoping that it gets here within the time frame. But even if we have 20 ventilators, given the underlying conditions that exist in Saint Lucia today, with kidney failure, diabetes, I mean, you go to the dialysis center. I go there on a daily basis because I have a brother who's on dialysis. I have to take extra precautionary measures because he lives with me. If I contract that disease, that virus of COVID-19, and he gets it, where I have a chance of survival, I think his chances are zero. Now, when people see we take a hard line, so take for me as a politician and as a person who always gives people a ride on my vehicle, I have to pass the road maybe at a time when people need a ride the most, and I cannot give them a ride because the protocol is we have to treat each other as if everybody is a carrier of the virus. That is the only way. So when Cabinet met and mandated the immediate shutdown, it was to prevent what we saw happening in Antigua, and persons who saw the videos would see that there is little control you can have over people. And I want to say to the people of Saint Lucia, if you do not need something, when you go to the place and you see the chaos, please, if you have to go hungry for a meal, I would say it is more beneficial to go hungry for one meal than to risk getting COVID-19, because we don't know what is going to happen. So first I want to establish there's no sign of weakness on the part of the Prime Minister or giving in under pressure. It was something that was agreed to prior to the announcement being made. We knew where we would give the reprieve to the people. But we were expecting that after the first 24 hours of the shutdown, that people would come to their senses and would begin to realize, look here, we are not going to die from starvation or lack of water or any such thing. The greatest likelihood of more people dying in Saint Lucia is COVID-19. And that is what we are trying to protect. So I applaud my colleagues, my Prime Minister, and everybody else, even the opposition. The opposition has cooperated to a great extent on this whole matter of supporting the positions being taken by the government. I overlook some of the comments that are made in the process. Maybe if I was in their position, I may have said something also. So I'm not even going to make an issue out of this. But I want persons to understand. The day this thing gets out of control, you know what is likely to happen? Everybody will say the government didn't do enough quickly enough. So when we had the first imported case, the call was shut down the borders. We shut down the borders. Now we have in-country transmission. Isn't it natural that the expectation is that as much as we were asked to shut the borders, that we should now quarantine everybody to contain the spread? I mean, this is a natural occurrence. Every indicator pointed that once you had in-country transmission, that your quarantine would increase, your curfew time would increase, and that you would limit movement. Our general behavior as St. Lucians is the main contributor to us being where we are today.
Okay. Yesterday, I noticed that there were a few people on the road driving, and some persons did not have passes, essential service passes, and so on. Is it a situation where things were lax in terms of enforcement was lax for the first 24 hours?
There was a level of flexibility, but the police, I have to compliment our frontline people, the police officers in their approach. They've been tasked with a very, very high mandate in terms of enforcing this, but I trust that we would continue to cooperate with them and give them the level of support that they need.
Okay. We are due for our first break. When we come back, we are going to find out what's happening on the ground in the minister's constituency of Castries Southeast, as well as talk about the ongoing preparation of the stimulus packages for St. Lucians in this country. Do stay tuned.
Wash your hands. Wash them before
eating or handling food or caring for infants, sick or elderly people.
Wash your hands. Wash them after
Using the toilet, touching raw meat, handling pets and livestock, playing outdoors, cleaning or handling waste and garbage.
Wash your hands. Wash them often.
You are going right when you make a habit of washing your hands several times a day.
This message brought to you courtesy the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back to the broadcast. You are watching the COVID-19 response here in St. Lucia. We're reporting from the command center. In studio with me is the Minister Guy Joseph, and he is talking to us about the ongoing situation, the national shutdown, as well as reinforcing the point that the accommodations that have been made from this morning to help people get supplies, much needed supplies, get gas, etc. It was not an afterthought to the shutdown. It was part of the policy agreement. Right, Mr. Missa?
Yes, it was.
And it was part of the policy agreement, and it's not a situation where the Prime Minister is now acquiescing to the complaints of the general public wanting time to make purchases and so on. We want to now move on to, Minister, the stimulus packages, and it was mentioned very lightly by the Prime Minister. I would imagine it's still being fleshed out. Can you give us some insight into the COVID rescue package that he mentioned? Because he said it would be two packages, COVID rescue package and the economic stimulus package.
Yes, so as indicated by the Prime Minister, the first focus on the government is the response to COVID-19 in terms of bringing that health crisis under control. Now, it is important for persons to understand. We understand the need for a stimulus package to help sustain families. And that is why the appeal of the government is, let us control the spread of the virus. There's not an endless supply of money. We are not the US where we can go and print 2 billion or 2 trillion and say we are going to have a stimulus package with this. Our situation is one where we have very limited resources. We have limited cash at our disposal. So the cost of managing COVID-19 is going to have a direct impact or influence on how much can be done on the economic side of the stimulus package. So if, for example, we have a major outbreak in Saint Lucia, and you now have to spend millions of dollars on healthcare, on doing much more than would have been done if you were able to manage COVID-19 with limited community spread. It means that the latitude that the government would have to spend on reviving the economy would be much better. So it is to strike the right balance. And everybody is saying, well, other countries have announced. Yes, other countries have announced, but have they done? It is easy to go out there and announce. I belong to a government where every time we have promised on something, we have worked very hard to deliver on what we have promised. So, St. Lucians, I'm appealing to us to understand the method of operations. The method of operation is that if we control the spread of the virus, we reduce the expenditure that we are going to have on managing COVID-19, we are going to get a much better stimulus package for the economy. But if you now have to be battling between spending in the economy and responding to the health crisis, people's lives matter more than anything else. And what we are attempting to do is to save as many lives, our frontline workers. So bringing in the 100 nurses, 100 plus nurses and doctors from Cuba This would come at a cost to the government. Now, if we can minimize the need to have to look to bring in more persons, to bring in more equipment, to fully outfit VH as the respiratory hospital, all of this is going to help us on the other side. That is why I am very pleased with the approach that the government is taking to say, look here, let us get the health situation under control. And once we have that under control, we would be in a much better position to begin to deal with an overall rescue package on the economic side of things. So matters have been considered. We've looked at all the workers who have been laid off, not just in the hotel industry, but in private businesses, in the manufacturing sector. You look at your vendors, your attractions, your taxi drivers, your minibus operators who have now had to go on a shutdown completely. So you look across the board and you're looking at, well, initially we were looking at maybe 15,000 workers being impacted. Now we're talking about 30 and 40,000 workers. Now, had we hastily gone ahead and announced a rescue package for these workers who had been impacted, with the understanding that the others would remain employed, then all of a sudden you are doubled up on the number of people who are unemployed. This situation changes every day. I mean, I watched the rebroadcast on NTN, and some of the rebroadcast has become irrelevant in relation to what we say today. What I'm discussing with you today may be of no relevance tomorrow, because the situation could have changed so much. So we want St. Lucians, our people, to understand there is a rescue package that is being considered. I think quite a bit of work has gone into it. I know yesterday there were some meetings with the unions, yes, and a team, a cabinet team, along with maybe a rep or two from the previous government negotiating team. These discussions are taking place. All of the sectors are being engaged. We have now asked the fishermen not to go out. So they have to be added to the list. The number of farmers who can no longer practice their trade, the vendors. We were looking at vendors within the tourism industry. We've shut down the market. The vendors who have their produce. I know Marketing Board was trying to buy some of these produce. You now have to find the money to pay this. And people need to understand. Presently, the government is collecting no revenue because nobody is paying taxes, nothing is happening, there's no economic activity.
No flights.
So we cannot be careless and reckless in our approach. I think when the Prime Minister asked people to ration what they were doing, people felt that it was a shortage of food. But he was saying, look here, be mindful how you spend the dollar that you have today. Because we do not know when this economy, I mean, look at the US. They have gone on a 30-day shutdown. The entire month of April. At what time will things reopen in the US to be able to allow things to flow in the economy? If Miami shuts down, what happens in terms of our supplies and what comes into St. Lucia? So the reality is unfolding on a daily basis, and we are asking our people to make a sacrifice now. A sacrifice. Cut down on the amount that you eat. Now, people may tell me, I used to feel that dinner was the best meal of the day. I mean, I used to eat the biggest plate of food because sometimes I didn't eat well for the day. Now I easily make it on 1 or 2 meals a day. That's what I've done to control my weight for my own personal reasons. But there are some disciplines that we have to begin to engender in how we live, what we do. So that thinking that some of us think that if I don't eat 3 meals a day, I will die. That's not the case. Sometimes the 3 meals a day kills us quicker than if we were eating 1 or 2 meals a day based on our health condition. Now, I will not venture into this area. There are people with better expertise to speak on that than I do. But I know that to maintain a healthy lifestyle, we have to change a lot of things about what we are doing, building our resistance. Are we eating the right things to help us build? Because if COVID is like a flu, the stronger your resistance is towards the flu and other diseases of that nature, the better you are going to weather out the storm of COVID. So there are certain things that we can do to help ourselves. There's no way government can fix everything for everybody. We need some people we need the country to take personal responsibility and begin to say it's not what the Prime Minister does or what the Minister or the Cabinet or the police or the CMO. What can I do to protect myself? What is it that I can do to protect my family? So when I leave here and I go home, what is required of me, because my brother is in the house? And if he contracts it and he dies, then I would feel guilty for the rest of my life. That if I had maybe taken certain precautionary measures until it hits home in Saint Lucia, we don't understand it. But I'm hoping that we would not get to the point where COVID would kill one Saint Lucian. And then we can all be proud that the sacrifices that we have made, and I say to people, the meals that you sacrifice today, the trip to the supermarket, the trip on the road, the conversations that you are having, all of that, if you give up that for 1 week, you can help save the life of a loved one. You can help save the life of a fellow Saint Lucian. And when you weigh the two side by side, one thing I want to tell them, can you imagine that a loved one dies and you cannot even have a funeral service for them because of COVID-19? Are you willing to risk that over a meal? How many times we go an entire day, we're so busy at work, and we don't eat, and we don't even remember that we have not eaten for the day because we are so caught up. Now, I know everybody is sitting at home, and maybe, yesterday I went and I said, let me try and make a little garden at the back of my house. Now, not everybody can do that because they may not have the space, but I'm saying, let's find creative ways to occupy ourselves and not risk ourselves and our families.
Understood. The government medium-term development strategy is obviously interrupted. We're talking about the industry's health, tourism, security. What is the contingency plan of the government in terms of ensuring that while there's this interruption right now, it can resume at some point, or what's the contingency?
So the contingencies control the in-country spread. If we can maintain that, then we can go back to normal operations because our borders are closed, except for those who are smuggling people in illegally. And we know it, and some of the communities and individuals facilitate it. But I'm hoping that the appeal would be that people would stop doing that. But if we contain in-country spread, we have a strong construction program. We have spoken to the World Bank, the CDB, all of the projects that we have pending, the Taiwanese funded projects, all of them. What we are going to see is a major surge in construction activity to take some of the slack from the other sectors that have been severely impacted and depending on outside resources. But all of that will come to nothing if in-country spread is not contained. And that's why we took the approach of the first instance, a shutdown for 7 days to regulate the spread and to keep it under control so that we can go back as much as possible to normal operations in country.
Okay, we are due for another break. When we come back, we speak to the minister on what is happening on the ground in his constituency. Do stay tuned.
Bonjour tout le monde. Nous tout j'attend et ben nous hawe qui ça qui passe jodi a laisser ti boutique là ouvert. Bon moi ça comprendre peut-être nous ni pour aller boutique pour acheter marchandises nous. Mais s'il vous plaît, n'a mando s'il vous plaît. Le ou ka ale se boutique sa la. Le ou ka espere de wo. We ki ou pa ka du bout pwe lot moun. Bagay COVID-19 sa la, se bagay ki bien serye. Si ou ni mask la kayo, si ou ni yon mouche poche, o bandana, o bagay ou sa couvert fi jayo, pour essayer pour ka e couvert fi jayo. Nous sommes une nation qui aime causer. Nous sommes une nation qui aime oui by blague. Mais quand nous ka fait ça souple, on nous prend précaution pour nous pas passer maladie by yon a lot. Mais quand mando souple, point précaution. Expressement c'est moun qui ka aller acheter marchandises aujourd'hui à cette boutique là. Zo ka du bout trop pwe yon a lot. Mwen ka di encore, ministre santé ha di nous même ka we nouvel hod oliwo la terre. Bagay COVID-19 sa la son bagay ki bien sérieux. Souple, an nou fè ki sa ki douet, sa ki bon pour nous toutes, pour famille nous, pour nous mêmes, et pour ces moun nan qui ka travail, ek gens qui jani za fait COVID ça là. On nous pas fait travail plus wed parce que jaye. Bon, moi vle tout moun comprendre, souple, le ou fait ça, le ou obéi, le ou prend précaution, ou ka fait ça pour ou même, pour famille ou, et pour whole nation. Merci un pile.
We just had a statement there from the Honorable Gail Rigobert, Honorable Minister for Education, and she was also speaking there on the national shutdown. I hope you guys took in the statement, the information that she had to share. Back in studio, we're here with Minister Guy Joseph. We've been speaking about the government medium-term development strategy being interrupted, as well as the COVID rescue package, the economic stimulus package, getting what little information we can at this point. As the minister said, things are evolving at the moment, and the cabinet is still fleshing out how it's going to put together an economic stimulus package for the country, but that is, they can guarantee, underway. We now want to move to the minister's work in his constituency, the constituency of Castries Southeast. Mr. Minister, can you tell us what has been ongoing, what has been the response of your constituents, and what help have they been afforded?
Okay, so I need to say here, more than 2 weeks ago, I recorded a message and I sent it out on social media to constituents within the constituency, because I knew that as things began to evolve, we would get to that stage. So there's been a lot of preparation in terms of my constituency office and what we do. We've sent out messages. We've been indicating to people. I have been on a number of the call-in programs, appealing to the constituents to cooperate as much as possible with all of the instructions being given so that we can control the spread within the constituency. What we have done for the farmers, as an example, because we have quite a few livestock farmers within the constituency of Castries Southeast, I can inform them that for those who have not received their passes, that the cul-de-sac office was open earlier today. The number for the Region 8 office in cul-de-sac is 451-2277. And that's one of the numbers that they could contact in order to get their pass so that they can, because some of them, the location of the animals, they need a pass to be able to travel. And those who have farms, for example, you have a number of persons in Mac who may have their farms in the Roseau Valley or in cul-de-sac. So they need to move along the road with their vehicles. In the case that they have not been able to contact the office of NEMO, and we know that NEMO is inundated because of the pressures that everybody is trying to get through the 311 number and all of these things. So what we have done is we have 2 persons in the office working on a shift system from 8 to 12 and 12 to 5.
In your constituency office?
In my constituency office. The number is 451-0012. The intention is to limit the movement of people. So we have people, they may see them come in with their gloves and their mask and everything, but that is the mechanism. So we do not want anybody to come to the office in person. The phone number is given so that you can access the office. So if you run out of cooking gas, we know that you are at home and you must cook. So we would have a vehicle that we would dispatch. Most likely they will get the tank of gas from one of the suppliers and come to you where you would pay for the gas. We're not the ones paying for the gas for you. So I'm making that clear before people say we come in and deliver gas for them. We want them to limit their movement so that we have a couple of vehicles that have passes to assist in attending to some of these key issues within the constituency. Now, we don't want to do things just for people's convenience. What we are saying is that we want you to cooperate with us. Unless if you have a second tank of gas and one is empty, wait for next week, because the curfew or the lockdown ends on Wednesday morning, except under some extenuating some circumstances it may need to be extended, but I don't see that happening without an opening at that point in time. Like I said, things change every day, so I don't want to be held entirely to this. So we have that, so you can contact the office. What we did yesterday was, because of the immediacy of what had happened, we have a lot of elderly people in the constituency of Castries Southeast, and it's a big constituency. The second largest geographically and the second largest population-wise in terms of constituencies on the island. So we are second to Grosile in terms of population and second to Choiseul in terms of geographic size. So what we did was we distributed some parcels of bread to as many persons as possible, and we expect that this afternoon, those we did not give yesterday will get some today. Now, you know, I want persons to understand that we cannot give you everything that you need. We are trying to help in the situation as best as we can. There are some small grocery parcels that have been prepared that will be distributed. I know Nemo is coming this afternoon, and they already have the list of the poor and the indigent, the people who are in greatest need and most vulnerable. So some of this distribution would be done this afternoon along with the persons from the Constituency Council of Castries Southeast. So we are trying to strike a balance between our farmers, those who are confined to their homes. Some of the caregivers have had to go out because we have some elderly people who are bedridden and have nobody looking out for them. So some of these basic things must remain on track so that we can meet the needs of these people. Because while we are trying to manage the behavior of some delinquent people, it is causing the suffering of other people who have contributed in no way to this situation. So I want to assure them that the office remains open today until 5. Not for persons, but just for the telephone.
Okay. And
also will be open tomorrow. And once they call in and indicate, they leave their phone number, their general information, their alias name in case somebody comes to them to try and find the exact location in the community. We have limited the conversation. So for example, in the distribution of the bread, there was supposed to be no physical just hand a parcel of bread and that's it, and you go about your business. Because people always want, and especially when you're on a vehicle, they want to come close to the window, and we still want to maintain the 6 feet distance as much as possible. So we believe that if both persons stretch their hands, that the contact is minimal. And it's not because we see people as being lepers or unclean, or it is just the protocol that is being established. We might miss some people along the way, so we've appealed to the persons living in close proximity. You know your neighbors, you know the situations. If there is need to share something, a meal, a bottle of water, something, at least let us be, while we minimize the social interaction, let us try to manage this as best as possible, so that we can come out of this situation on a side where we can say we have done a good job in preserving and protecting each other. That's not going to be about government at the end of the day. That is going to be about the attitude that we displayed as St. Lucians as to how we support and encourage each other. So if you see your neighbor or your family live in the house and it's not necessary, make a phone call. In fact, one of the things I've been trying to rectify is people who may run out of credit. How do we rectify this thing? But prior to coming on the program, I did not get to deal with that. But I expect to be in touch with Digicel and with Lime Flow a little later today, so that we can at least have some guidance to give to the people as to what the possibilities are. I know that there's an arrangement where you can call. I usually hear people calling those persons selling the credit. So, but I don't know how they're going to facilitate the payments, what arrangements they would have. But we need to do, let us sacrifice this week for the better good, so that at the end of the day we can go back to normal.
Okay, you mentioned the grocery services and buying bread for your constituents, the delivery services. Is that standard across the with the MPs, or does it vary? Does the service that your constituency offers, will it vary from constituency to constituency? It
would vary from constituency to constituency. The reason for this is because, I guess, remember, I've been, that's my third term as parliamentary rep. So I have developed a very strong link and relationship with the people in the constituency. Somebody who's their first term MP, or they may not be able to have all of these things. I've basically worked with the same team of people over the years. So there's a wide knowledge of the constituency. So my group leaders in each of the areas, I can call them up and I can say, how many elderly people you think we need to attend to in this area? And that information is readily available, so that we can. So when Nemo, for example, asked for a list of the persons, I know that from the chat I saw the names coming in at a very rapid pace, because we do 500 food hampers every Christmas within the constituency. And these are targeted towards the poor, the indigent, the single mothers, you know, the elderly who no longer work and cannot do. So we have a database of people that we've been working with, and we work across the political divide. So when it comes to things like that, it's not about who you support and who you vote for or anything. It's about being able to meet the needs of the community. We've had several storms. We've had a lot of flooding. So over the years, we've learned our people. We understand the needs of each of the communities. What is the most pressing need in Sarot may not be what is needed in Mac, because Mac is an area that gets flooded, while Sarot may be suffering from a landslide or some other thing. So it's knowing the geographic space that you have and the people that you represent and being able to meet the needs. So other constituencies over the years will, parliamentary reps will develop that kind of relationship. But that didn't happen overnight for me. That didn't happen during my first term in office. That happened as I continued to represent the constituency and got more and more involved in the day-to-day lives of the people of the constituency.
I just want to ask you a question. It's from a query that was coming on our Facebook Live. If you have any questions, St. Lucians, persons who are following our Facebook Live, you can type in your question there, and I will try to convey it to the minister. This question is, does the special accommodation, and that's the opening of the small community shops and so on, does it not defeat the purpose of the shutdown and enforcing sort of public, everybody staying home?
It contributes, but it is striking the right balance between the needs of people because some of us may have an extra thing at home that we can eat. Some people, because of the manner, and people need to understand that we had a tough choice to make. Do you do an immediate shutdown? Do you allow them to have a run on the supermarkets and these things? So we felt that if in a community you have 5 or 6 small shops, not rum shops, because we've suspended the liquor license and that remains. But people who sell a little grocery, they sell a tuna fish, rice, flour, these things.
Mom and pop shops.
Yes. These are the shops that we said that should remain open. The reason for this is because there's supposed to be only one attendant in the shop. So nobody has to take transport to go to that area. The people who live in close proximity, we expected that the shop owners, to protect themselves, may allow one person in the shop at a time. What we have seen is the indiscipline is on the outside of the establishment. And if I was running a shop and people were congregating outside where they are likely to contaminate me on the inside, I would close the shop. So it is people's discipline. It cannot be leveled at the government that we are defeating the purpose. Why are we doing what we are doing? Everything that is being done for the people. It is to strike the right balance. And all we are asking the people to do is to maintain a distance of 6 feet. Is that rocket science? Is that so difficult for people to maintain a distance of 6 feet? I mean, look at where we are in the studio having an interview. There's definitely more than 6 feet between us.
About.
The cameraman is all the way across there. I'm saying that, how difficult is that? And how are we going to say, oh, the government should not have done this and the government should not have done that? I'm giving you an example. People may have run out of Pampers for an elderly person who is bedridden. You are saying that we cannot facilitate them getting a packet of Pampers because people will not abide by the 6 feet distance? I mean, is that what we have become as a people? And then we are going to level all of that and say, well, the government. You see, I don't buy into that slavery mentality that we must have a taskmaster to have us do everything right. I think we've grown sufficiently as a nation and as a people that we can at least do the basics right for ourselves. So while it looks that way to the person who may not need anything, the government knew that this would have been the outcome, that we would have opened and that we would have expected people. As to whether Monday is going to remain open, I have to question this now. I think the government needs to revise its position and look at whether you are going to allow, because if you cannot be disciplined in a simple matter like this, after you have understood all that has been said, then the government may have to make the more draconian decisions and implement the measures to say, because the number of people who send me messages and said, look, we are not going to die over the 7-day shutdown. But if we get COVID, somebody in our family is likely to die. Because you are young and strong and you may be able to weather it, think of your mother, think of your grandmother, think of another family member who may have an underlying health condition. Take asthma as an example. Can you imagine somebody having asthma and having to deal with that COVID? And how many of our people are exposed to these kinds of sicknesses? We may see them on the street, they look normal, we don't know what is wrong with them. Only they know. And sometimes you go out there and you bring back something into your home because it is from somebody you least expected that would have had it.
Okay. Based on the projections, it's almost inevitable that we may get some more cases based on the local transmission. Can you give us any insight at all into the plans of the cabinet as to what will happen post-national shutdown, 7-day shutdown?
So the matter is to be evaluated at the end of the first 7 days because the Ministry of Health, along with a team from the implementation unit of the medium-term strategy, because we have a combined team working on this, they had worked out a model where if the multiplier, if we were to double on a 2-day basis, a 4-day, or an 8-day basis, what the numbers would be. And it was based on that modeling that we felt that a 7-day shutdown, if you limit the movement of persons and you are able to contain the spread, then you can reevaluate at the end of that period and come up with a new strategy as to how. Because the thinking was that within that 7 days of the initial shutdown, people who may have contracted the virus from some of the people who they had been in contact with who had tested positive, by then would begin to show the symptoms of the possibility of having been contaminated themselves, and would give us a better sense of what the reality is. So the 7-day shutdown, from my understanding with the discussions that was held with the CMO and the cabinet, is to help us to make a better determination, because we are convinced that there is more than the 13 named cases, confirmed cases. But we would not know. And because these people are not showing the symptoms yet, they would be out there and spreading more. So if we are able to contain them to just the limited space of their home, then it means that if they show the symptoms, then you have been able to narrow down the contact tracing to just a particular group of people. Take, for example, with our quarantine facility, the contact tracing after the first 5, the initial stages, and then when we had the 5 announced, the contact tracing led to more than 100 persons who had to now be put into quarantine. Now, if you have to have the multiplier effect on that, and you have a doubling of that, where are we going to get quarantine facilities to put all of these people? So these are some of the reasons that influence the immediate shutdown, so that it could help us to cope with the reality of what we are faced with and give us a better sense of what the reality is on the ground as far as the persons who have contracted the virus. And then I guess the team would sit, evaluate what has come in, the tests that have been conducted, the number of additional cases, and come up with a new strategy as to what is going to happen from there on. But the 7-day shutdown is not an end of itself to say that at the end of the 7 days that we have won the victory over Corona and it's an all clear. That's not the case.
How prepared is this government if we need to pursue another shutdown, whether it be 7 days, 14 days? How prepared is the government to meet the needs, continue meeting the needs of the public with the delivery of these relief packages, etc.?
The government can never be fully prepared. We can meet a certain measure of what is required. I mean, I have to ask myself, for the last 2 weeks, people have been shopping. The supermarkets have been running out of supplies. And I'm saying, everybody is still hungry. I mean, I'm asking myself, are people hoarding things that's going to spoil before they can eat it? Because we have to strike the right balance. And there's a high level of selfishness. And I know that saying that as a politician, that people may take me to task on it. I'm willing. But there is a high level of selfishness in our approach towards this. Now, the bread that I distributed yesterday, it was not for political reasons. The baker had posted on Facebook that he had all of that bread.
believe I saw that, Breadmaster.
Yes. And then he was saying to people, come at your own risk and take the bread if you want. So what I did was I contacted him and I said, hey, look here, there's hungry people in the constituency, no matter how you look at it. So instead of this bread going to waste, we decided I'll buy the bread and I'll distribute the bread within the constituency. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to have a certain level of compassion for people to understand their plight. And in the government showing it some compassion, some of the same people who are criticizing the government heavily for shutting down the country with no notice are the same ones today criticizing the government for opening the small shops in the communities. So it's a no-win situation. But we are not distracted by these things. We have a responsibility as leaders, and we ventured into an area to be leaders of this country, so we expect to get the criticism. When it's good, it's other people who do it. When it's bad, it's the politicians and the leaders who have done it. So we are used to dealing with that. The reality is we will continue to do what we think is best based on the advice given by the expertise. And I have to applaud the Prime Minister and the CMO, because I don't think that I have seen the Prime Minister attempting to override the CMO at any point in time in terms of what has been happening. And I have to compliment the Minister of Health and her team, the CMO and everybody else, who has shown what real leadership is in these situations. Because I don't know what time these people sleep. I don't know, because I go to bed and before I go to bed, if I go to bed at 11, I contact them, they respond. And if I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I contact them, they respond. And I'm saying to myself, at what point do these people get any rest or any sleep? And if they're asking the rest of us to make a little sacrifice for their sake, I'm asking, is that too much for us to do?
There have been some concerns that the 311 hotline may be overburdened for its duplicitous, its double duty in terms of getting information. Can you comment on that?
Yes, it has been overburdened. In fact, yesterday it crashed, and from my understanding, the telephone company was saying they've never seen that. They couldn't even get. We had to get other systems to back up. Wow. And that is why, in my own approach, that is why I realize a lot of people may be calling that don't need to call. But I don't want to make that judgment call, because people will tell me, but you don't know my business. How do you know I don't need to call? So I rest that and I say to myself, you know what? What can I do as a parliamentary rep to help in the situation? And that is why I say, if I can remove some of the burden on Nemo and the 311, and I can at least have my people during the hours of 8 to 5, one person in the office at a time, to man the phone lines. Once they get the messages, they would WhatsApp it to our contact persons on the ground who would facilitate what we can. We cannot do everything, but we can do some things, and whatever we can do, we will attempt to do in the process. I mean, yesterday, people may look at it. Somebody called for some help with some supplies that was needed for an elderly person. And within minutes, we were able to deliver the supplies that was required. And she called back and she was so thankful. Now, that may appear as a little thing, but to a family that's in need of something. And some of the situations is not because people cannot afford. Mm-hmm. Because some people may be able to afford to buy what they want, but if the place is closed, how do they get it? So we cannot even look at our parcel distribution and our food distribution as being limited to just the poor and the indigent. Because there may be people who actually have the means to get the money to get it, but cannot get it. Mm-hmm. And these are some of the things that, if, for example, I know that this person wants $50 worth of groceries, and they give us a list of what they need, then we can make an arrangement, because we have mini-marts in the constituency that may have supplies. We can get the package done and we can distribute it. These are the things that we are attempting to do to bring as much relief so that Nemo is not overburdened. Nemo is doing the best that they can in the situation, but it's not easy when you are being bombarded on every side.
So you acknowledge that Nemo is inundated?
Nemo is inundated. There's no question. I mean, I've been in touch with the director of Nemo, Mrs. Gustav, and I feel for them and the team that is there, because let me tell you, our people can be difficult to deal with at times. So I'm appealing to us that while we can, let's do the best we can to relieve the burden of other persons.
We're running out of time, but just briefly, I just want to find out from you, based on your political career, this is pretty much unprecedented. If you could give your sentiments on how this has, your thoughts on this in terms of how it's affected your career in the constituency. What it means to you.
It has tested things that have never been tested before, because you see, dealing with Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve trough and Matthew and the drought and water distribution, all of these things, you have the person-to-person contact.
Yeah.
The most difficult part of COVID-19 is that you cannot reach out to your people in the way that you want. Imagine you have to speak to people that you love and you care about, and you have to distance yourself. That people are coming too close to you, and you have to politely tell them, look here, maintain the distance, please. Passing people on the road and not being able to pick them up when under normal circumstances, you would have given them a right. So, it is uncharted territory for us. It is very difficult. I mean, I've had so many people who have died in the constituency, and some of them have not been able to go to the funerals. Some of them have risked, because of the relationship with the persons, to visit one or two members of the family. I mean, today, the two people who got shot in the constituency, the funeral was scheduled for 2 o'clock today. Everything had been put in place, and the funeral, because of the shutdown, had to be postponed. And it's a large family, and the family was saying to us, they are saying only 10 of us can come to the funeral. The immediate siblings are more than 10. Is there anything that can be done? And I'm telling them, as I cannot ask that the protocols be broken to facilitate you. And what I appreciate about the Sulal family is that they understood that as the parliamentary rep, I cannot ask a special favor for them. That is the painful thing of this. It's not just the sickness. It's not just getting it and recovering. But it is the emotional scars that remain. That you have a loved one who have died, and you cannot even attend the funeral to bring closure, to see that coffin go down, because that brings closure to some people. So, and if we allow the spread of the virus and people begin to die as a result, these people are going to be buried, and we are not going to be able to even see them, not even see them while they are sick. So is 2 pounds of rice or 2 pounds of flour or a bottle of oil at the shop, is it worth that? Is it worth, wouldn't you give up free meals for a day to save a family member or a friend from going through this? These are the things we have to weigh up when we are going to make a determination that I'm going to defy the police and I'm going to go out there and do as I please.
Thank you very much for sitting in with us, Minister Guy Joseph. He's the Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation. He's also giving us an update on works that are ongoing in his constituency to help deal with the COVID-19 shutdown. Thank you so much for watching. Before we leave, though, I just want to respond to somebody who made a query on the Facebook Live, a mini-mart owner. We just want to let you know that while the Thursday opening has closed, we can no longer take persons at the mini marts and community small shops. Monday will be another opportunity, Monday, April 6th, between 6 a.m. and 12 noon for persons who need supplies.
You can go about that.
Well, that's what we've seen outlined under the Essential Services Schedule 1, April 1st, 2020.
That may change.
It may change.
Yes.
Okay, so there you have it from the minister, a member of cabinet, saying that the mini-mart community small shops minimal operations for Monday, April 6th may change, but at present we see it 6 a.m. to 12 noon. Also, the wholesalers and delivery activity for the mini-marts and community small shops, if they choose, upon request, their stores can be restocked and they can sell to persons in their community. That is all the time we have for now. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Do continue to look out for our programming on GIS. My name is Jessie Leon, signing out for now on behalf of the entire GIS team. Goodbye.
Good morning, my dear people of Miko North. We have all seen what has transpired this morning at our community shops, at the tea boutiques, the corner stores. Please, I beg of you, let us not lose sight of the need to maintain social distancing in an effort to protect ourselves, our families, our frontline workers. I understand that you may need to go to the stores this morning, but please, in so doing, maintain a healthy distance between yourself and the person next to you. We do not want for this crisis to become any worse than it is already. Maintain social distancing. Those of you who can and who do have masks, can you please wear them? I beg of you. COVID-19 is real.